When you think of the invention of farming, you probably picture ancient human civilizations. Maybe you think of early plows or just vast sweeping fields of crops, right? Well, what if I told you that agriculture was actually invented millions of years before humanity even existed? Welcome to This Explainer, the hidden mastermind, nature's first underground farmers. Today we're going to dive into a pretty mind-bending concept. Highly sophisticated underground farms run entirely by tiny insects.
So, when we contrast human agriculture with Ambrosia beetle agriculture, the most striking difference for sure is the timeline. I mean, our human invention of farming is relatively recent in the grand scheme of Earth's history. But on the flip side, we have the ancient Ambrosia beetle. Now, this insect doesn't actually eat the wood it bores into. Instead, it's this master horticulturist. It drills deep into the hearts of trees to build these intricate, hidden networks, purely to cultivate its own private, specialized fungal gardens. They were literally farming long before we even existed.
All right, Section 1, the first underground farmers. And let's meet the Ambrosia beetle.
Now, you might expect the world's very first farmers to be some large, highly evolved mammal, but our unlikely protagonist is a creature less than 1/8 of an inch long. We are talking about an insect smaller than a single grain of rice. Visually, they are incredibly small and really hard to spot. They have these cylindrical, reddish-brown or black bodies, and actually, that specific shape isn't just a random accident. It's perfectly designed for tough tunneling through solid wood. They are microscopic marvels, completely built for deep excavation. And the absolutely crucial point to remember as we move forward is that they aren't eating the wood. To them, the wood is just the soil for their crops. But how exactly do you farm if you're smaller than a grain of rice?
Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of a Fungal Farm.
These tiny farmers cultivate their private, specialized garden locked away safely inside the heart of a tree through an absolute biological superpower. It's called mycongia. This is a highly specialized, built-in biological pocket inside the beetle's body, and it's used exclusively to carry live fungus spores. Honestly, this is arguably the most mind-blowing fact about the Ambrosia beetle. It literally has a backpack built into its anatomy just for seeds. When a young female leaves her birthplace to find a new home, she packs this pocket with live spores of a very specific fungus, known as the Ambrosia fungus. She is intentionally packing her seeds for the next harvest. It's just wild.
So let's walk through the actual farming process because it's a meticulous marvel. First, the female packs those live spores into her mycongia. Then, she selects a tree and starts boring a tunnel deep inside. Next, she carefully and intentionally plants the fungus along the wooden walls of her new home. Finally, the fungus grows. As it absorbs nutrients from the tree's sapwood, it creates this rich, nutritious, velvet-like carpet inside the wood. This cultivated fungus becomes an exclusive food source for both the adult beetles and their developing larvae. It's a brilliant, completely self-sustaining agricultural system. But because they're so small and operate entirely inside the tree, you'll rarely ever see the hidden beetles themselves. So how do we even know they're in there?
Which brings us to Section 3, the Fraz toothpick.
Okay, so as the beetle bores deep into the wood to make its farm, it pushes the sawdust out behind it. This sawdust binds with the beetle's waste, and it actually exits the tree bark. It forms this bizarre structure that looks exactly like a tiny, delicate white toothpick sticking straight out of the tree trunk. This Fraz toothpick is the most famous, visible sign of their covert presence. It is basically the smoking gun of their whole underground farming operation. Now, up until now, this has all sounded like an absolute evolutionary masterpiece, right? But this brilliant behavior actually builds into a major real-world problem.
Let's look at Section 4, Tiny Farmers' Massive Destruction.
In the wild, in their natural habitat, they act as nature's cleanup crew. They typically target weakened, stressed, or dying trees, essentially helping to recycle them back into the ecosystem, which is great. However, certain invasive species of these beetles have turned into a massive threat. They've moved way beyond scavenging and are now attacking perfectly healthy crops. They've gone from being helpful scavengers to aggressive, devastating invaders, and they are causing a massive headache for foresters and farmers worldwide. And what exactly is at stake here? Well, these invasive species target healthy, economically vital crops. We're talking about avocado trees, nut trees, and timber trees. This is exactly why this information matters so much to us. We are talking about massive economic impacts on our food supply and our building materials. These microscopic farmers are taking down massive, vital trees all over the globe. Now, there's a very common misconception here that we need to clear up. The real danger isn't the mechanical damage from those tiny tunnels, it's the farming itself.
I mean, it's so easy to assume that a beetle drilling holes into a tree hurts the tree physically, right? But the physical damage from those tiny little tunnels isn't what brings down a giant avocado tree. No way. The true threat, the actual fatal blow, comes entirely from their agricultural practice.
The fatal blow is biological. The Ambrosia fungus actually chokes the tree's internal water transport systems. This is the fatal conflict. The beetle plants the fungus, and as that fungus grows into a rich velvet carpet to feed the beetle larvae, it essentially clogs the tree's internal plumbing. It completely cuts off the water supply, causing the branches to wilt and eventually killing the entire host tree. The farm quite literally outgrows its host, and the tree just dies of thirst from the inside out.
The Ambrosia beetle is a brilliant, yet incredibly destructive reminder of how complex insect societies can be. We are looking at a creature that literally carries its own garden wherever it goes. It really makes you rethink who the true masterminds of the natural world are, doesn't it? Which leaves us with this final, provocative question to think about. Could you believe a creature smaller than a grain of rice mastered agriculture millions of years before us? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.